Good afternoon and congratulations because you all have been reacting to the pandemic or responding to the pandemic like educated, matured individuals. Congratulations. That's exactly what is wanting now. With all our education, what is wanting is our mental maturity to accept and respond to the pandemic. And as I was listening to Vidya and as I was interacting with her, I could learn that you all have been doing beautifully well and you all have taken it so well that all you deserve is one huge round of applause, because most of us get stuck when something takes upon us unexpectedly. It's just human psychology. So without further delay, I have to tell you, most of us go through experience, and as an educated, matured individual, we are expected to grow through experience and just not go through experience, because every other day you come upon loads of incidents and you go through the incident. What happens is the incident becomes an experience only when you grow through it. What you were before you came upon it and what you are after it has left you. If it leaves indelible marks in your behavior, if your behavior changes, then as I told you, you really deserve a round of applause because you have evolved into a better being. What was knowledge would rather become wisdom so that you can put it into use. So congratulations once again for your team and all the members, and of course people who have invited me. Thank you ever so much, because I should tell you, I have been wanting to talk to you, waiting to talk to you and wishing to talk to you. Rather, I would correct it, I was just not wanting to talk to you but rather talk with you, in the sense that there is going to be an interaction and we would rather clarify ourselves and our stance. Now, coming back to the problem, what do you really mean by growing? How exactly does a person who does not want to grow react or respond to a situation in which we are all put? Just rewind life if you can. I really wish we could. Back to March 22nd. Everything was absolutely beautiful, but certainly not as bad as you find it now. Things were normal, and all of a sudden something happens. You feel as if the ground under your feet has just away slipped, and you do not know where you are and where you are going to land. It's not, the world has come upon such instances again and again, and our ancestors, maybe 100 years earlier, they did come upon such kind of pandemic. The only thing is, technology was not evolved into what it is now, that they could not connect with each other, speak of their problem to each other, lament over it, grumble over it, complain over it. So it's absolutely normal for a human psyche to exaggerate over things or imagine over things to make you understand things better. The real pain is far, far less than your imagination of pain. Most of us imagine pain and intensify it, but the real pain is nowhere near it, because your body knows how to respond to a pain. So it is your mind which you have to take care. Rather, we start with the first statement, mind your mind. But how do I mind my mind? I do not know where it is. Is it in my fingertip? Is it in my eye? Is it in the tip of my nose? I do not know. It looks as if I am completely covered with my mind. If that is the case, before you grow through experience, you have to know what experience is, and you have to know what growth is, and you have to know what change is, and you have to know what evolution is. It's almost like a little caterpillar becoming a butterfly, and once it has become a butterfly, there is no chance of it going back to the state of caterpillar. So even as a caterpillar, it had all the salient features which you appreciate in a butterfly, and once it becomes a butterfly, it does not remind you of a caterpillar anymore. So this pandemic has helped us to evolve from what we were into what we are now, unless you desperately cling on to your was and try to make your is imitate your was. Now, I was talking to you about human psyche. Now, it is complex, our mind is so complex. Had we been a little animal, had we been a cat or a dog or a plant outside, adapting to new changes is very, very easy, because they do not have any imagination. And they do not lean back on what they had as an experience. They go by their instinct, which is always agile and alert. Unfortunately, most of us have completely forgotten what instinct is, and we rather mistake it for an intuition, or some of us even make a very big mistake of mistaking it for intelligence. It is not your intelligence which is again, you have gathered it, accumulated. It is your intuition, the inner kind of voice. I am talking about instinct, which is absolutely an animal quality which we have to retain in us. Had we done it, we would not have been this rudely shocked. Now, why exactly do you find it so difficult to realize that even now your instinct would guide you properly, better than any other thing? If that is the case, you have to understand that your brain is very, very complex. It's not as simple and straight and plain like a rat or a cat, that of a rat or a cat or a tree or a plant, right? The people who coexist with us or co-inhabit the other living beings, they have a very, very simple way of approaching a problem. They see a problem as a problem and what to do next. What do? We add so many things to a problem and make it a bigger problem and then start analyzing. Now, what has happened? All of a sudden there is a lockdown. The pandemic, which was in the neighboring country, has at last arrived, knocked at our doors. We never knew that it is going to knock at our doors. We never knew that it is going to move from one country to another country. It is going to fly all the way to our own airport and will be carried by our own kinsmen, people who are our friends or relatives or our own boss. And finally, you find that it has come there and knocking at your doorstep where the lockdown comes in. We never thought of it at all. We were unprepared for it, totally unprepared for it. This is exactly what happens to human psyche whenever we come upon a problem. Actually, we are expected as educated, matured individuals, we are expected to look at a problem as a challenge. But out of habit, we always look at even a challenge as a problem because we enjoy receiving problems, we enjoy lamenting over problems, we enjoy gossiping over it because problem is so tasty, it is so juicy, it is so funny, right? So we have started enjoying problems. Now coming back to our psyche, whenever you come upon a problem, it may be small, it may be large, it may be simple, it may be complex, whatever may be the nature of the problem, the first reaction of a human mind is to deny the whole thing, to repeatedly deny that there is no such problem at all, it doesn't exist at all, it is just our imagination. The problem will never come to me, it may come to the neighboring country, it may never visit my country, it would never come to my state, it would never visit my street, it would never come to my apartment. Now this is a kind of a denial which we do so vehemently, continuously, thinking that we would brainwash ourselves that it never exists at all. Now this is the first stage. We were all there when the lockdown started, we were all with this mindset. No, it wouldn't come anywhere near us. It is summer and because of heat, it would never spread in India. Now we were just cooking up every other excuse for not believing that it has come. Instead of reasoning out, we were rather putting out our own excuses. Fine. So some of us are still there in the first stage. Blessed are those who have moved on to the fifth stage. Some of us have moved on to the second stage. The first stage is denial of a problem. I am not just talking about the pandemic. I am talking about every little problem you come upon every day. Whether the problem comes to you or you invite the problem or it is self-generated anxiety, whatever it may be. So, first thing is denial. If you are stuck there, please, I would rather welcome you to move on to the second stage, which means that you are on the move. Fine. We move on to the second one. The second one is not denial, it's anger. Now we become furious, impotent anger. We become so furious. The anger is not proactive, it is rather reactive. Anger is never action, it is only a reaction. Now what happens? You become so angry and you start cursing every other source which brought this pandemic or this problem to your doorstep. You say this person did not work properly, this person shirked the responsibility, this person did not work with commitment. No, you throw the blame on every other person, saying that you are so angry and wild. Just imagine how many of you are still caught in this kind of a negative emotion. You still blame somebody else. It's a kind of a blame game. You still blame someone, you blame the government, you blame the boss, you blame your neighbor, you blame every other person, saying that you have been careless and you did not do your work. And now I have to shoulder the responsibility. Again, fortunate is a person who has moved on from the second stage to the third one also. So we started with denial, second one is anger, and the third one is a very funny state of mind. Only human mind can think of it. we start bargaining with the situation, right? We rather offer something. It may be to God or to nature or to whomsoever is willing to listen to you. You start bargaining. Why don't you take this back and give me something else? Why don't you undo this so that I can do this? It's a kind of bargaining. Some of us are still stuck in that. And we expect somebody else to invent a medicine from some corner of the globe and send it to us so that now we can step out of the houses and walk freely around the place. So this is a kind of a bargain. Now some of us are stuck there, and again let me tell you, lucky is a person who has moved from the third stage to the fourth one. The fourth one is an invisible state. At least when you deny, you articulate it, you vocalize your problem. When you are angry, you just pour it out on somebody. You explode or you implode, but there are symptoms that you are angry. And the third stage, again, you articulate it, you vocalize it, you frame it, put it into words and make other person understand that you're going in for a trade, a kind of a business, a bargain. But the fourth one is absolutely difficult. I do not know how many of you are unfortunately stuck in that stage just because I'm older than you and seen life maybe 20-30 years more than what you have seen. I can tell you, some of us are ultimately stuck in the fourth stage, which is a kind of, it is a quicksand. The sense that the moment you put your feet there, even before you know, you think you are after all ankle deep, and by the time you realize that you are sinking, it becomes knee deep, and then it becomes neck deep, and unless somebody helps you out of it, there is no chance of your coming out. I am talking about the fourth stage, that is depression. Most of us get depressed, and if somebody asks you why you look very sad, immediately we deny. We say, no, I'm perfectly all right. Maybe I just had a headache or I have a stomach ache. You throw the blame on some part of your body which can never be measured, right? And it's all the more dangerous because if women are depressed, they are lucky enough to show the symptoms of depression to their near and dear ones. Either they are extremely touchy, or they are irritated, or they do something which is certainly not normal, and the family members or the colleagues can always identify and tell there is something really wrong with you. You were never like this. It's time you went to a doctor, or it's time you opened up. It's time you just don't hold back your emotion, you just pour it out. Women do show symptoms. It's unfortunate that our men friends, our men colleagues, or the men of our home front, the domestic front, they are expected to put a brave front. They're expected to say that everything nice, everything is normal, everything is quite good, just to make the other people in the house or in the office or in the society, to make them believe. Men always put on this kind of a defense. It's extremely difficult. Generally people say it's extremely difficult to fathom the emotions of a woman. I would rather say it's more difficult to fathom the emotions of a man because he is good in camouflaging the whole thing, hiding the whole thing under some other mask. Now this is what happens when you just look into the statistics offered by the pandemic. You find more number of men have succumbed to the problem, and many of them have died plainly because of heart attack or any other thing. This is one reason, because when I look at a man during this pandemic time, or when I hear about a person, all I understand is they are like ticking dynamites, or they are like an iceberg. What is visible is just the tip of an iceberg, and the rest of it we do not know at all. We don't even know that we are watching the tip of an iceberg. We just imagine that that is the iceberg. The 3/4 of it is already immersed, submerged under water, and that is what is happening to a man's psyche. Depression is a silent killer. If you do not find out where it is, why it is, and help the person to come out of it, it has to be treated clinically, or counseling is important. You cannot neglect it, because once your mind gets depressed, it becomes an open invitation for every other ailment that goes past you. Now after the fourth stage, the luckiest, the most fortunate are the people who come to the fifth stage, which is also a very normal, evolutionary, growing part of an experience of an adult understanding of life. The fifth one is, yes, the problem is here. Yes, it has come to stay. But what next? If I have to say that there are people who are very lucky, luckier than those who are in the fifth stage, the luckiest is the one who travels through all the 5 phases as quickly as possible. That's exactly where education has to stand by you, experience has to stand by you, your family members will have to stand by you, your colleagues will have to stand by you. Some kind of a person who just boosts your morale and tells you, don't worry, it is not an individual problem, it's a collective problem. And the moment you move on from the first stage of denial to the second one of anger, then moving on to the third one of bargaining for something better, and fourth one of depression, and coming out of it, and then moving on to the practical, real state of mind which we are all blessed with, even animals and birds and plants are blessed with. That is your instinct which just accepts the problem and then looks behind the beyond. We think this is the ultimate. No, if you are capable of looking behind the beyond and thinking that, okay, we are in 2020 and situation is not going to be this in 2030, fine, that is what is expected of an educated adult. Now, don't you feel I have been repeating one word every time when I coin a sentence, I bring out this word, educated, and sometimes I put it within quotation also. That's what is education. Education is the problem solving capacity which is inherent in you, and education and learning helps you to have it as a kind of, you offer it to your colleagues, you offer it to your family, and in group discussion that's exactly is brought out from you. So when you move on from the stage 1 of denial to the stage 5, there is a fifth one of accepting the problem and looking at it into the eyes and start thinking of what to do next, fine, you are a mentally matured individual. And that's exactly why when I started this conversation with you, I said I have to congratulate you because you have taken the pandemic in the right kind of spirit, and I understand that every one of you should have moved from the first one to the final one as quickly as you could. Some of you would have taken 10 days or 15 days, and some of you would have thought that there is a panacea available for this malady somewhere around the corner and you can make use of it when the third months come. No, already we have gone past 4 months, and we understand that there is at least in the vicinity, you don't find an immediate cure for this. Maybe in the month of November or December, some person who is totally unrelated to us, who is not listening to this conversation, who doesn't even care whether the sun has risen or it is dawn or dusk, a person who doesn't even care about whether it rains or shines outside, who is in some part of the globe, in some laboratory, standing in the solemn in a separate corner, working against this pandemic, finding out a vaccine for this pandemic. Let us be very thankful for such individuals who do not stand here to go through all the 5 phases in their own little time. But people who know that the pandemic is there, they have to have a cure, and immediately they go past all the 5 stages, jump into reality and start working for you and me. This is exactly how the situation was in 1900, right? India has seen worst kind of pandemics. We had during our time something called polio, and now if you are a young mother or a young father, you will know as a young parent, you would have been repeatedly reminded by the government and other non-governmental agencies whether you have treated, you have given your little one the drops or the vaccine for polio. How have you done it? You have to do it periodically, and you have an agency constantly to remind. But during our times, a vaccine was not invented then, and every other household will have a child affected by polio who is limping around the place, because the child would have gone through very severe fever, and after the fever abates, the child would have become too weak to walk. That's exactly how the pox family came, that's how cholera was, that's how malaria was. So let us not worry about the pandemic. It is our attitude which should not become pandemic to us, right? Already you have gone through 4 months. Just imagine if all of a sudden everything becomes normal, which you have been wishing for so long, but so sure your reason says it is not going to become the normal as you desire. You have to go back to your office, you have to again take your vehicle, and you know there will be traffic jam, and you have to reach the office at 9:30, you have to start at 8 o'clock, before which you fix everything. lunch and the breakfast for everyone, and you have to take care of the children, you have to drop them in school, everything is going to come back. How many of you will go running, ask, fine, this is the life I wanted? No, by now you would have got used to this, right? Most of us still have our shoes unpolished, our dress unpressed, fine, because we need not have all those things when you appear before a camera like this, or you have a group discussion. What has happened? We have been repeatedly telling that do not carry your domestic problems to your office ambience. Fine, that's very good, that's very professional, and I appreciate the professionalism. But how professional it is to bring your office to the domestic front? It is not professionalism. Fine, but in spite we try to accommodate. We try to accommodate the children, we try to accommodate the in-laws, we try to accommodate the parents, we try to accommodate ourselves, and we try to accommodate well within the 24 hours the work hours also. So there is no work hour and your family hour. It all has got completely jumbled, and it's a maze, and we do not know what to do. Right. Now in this context, I would like to tell you something else also. I do not know how many of you have reading habit. I would really appreciate if you have reading habit. Don't start complaining again, because the moment I ask you whether you have a reading habit, immediately we all lean back and take refuge in an excuse. Come on ma'am, we start working in the morning around 9 o'clock until 9 o'clock in the evening. We don't even have time to clean our house, run a bath, fix our food. We rather work through lunch. Thank you, I know all these, right? But again, even if the situation is not this, you will not say, yes ma'am, I have got time to read. No, it's always 24 hours, whether it is for Mahatma or for Mother Teresa. How well do you accommodate yourself and everything in the 24 hours? That is more important. Fine. If you have reading habit, I am going back to the same thing. Even if you do not have a reading habit, right? What I am going to tell you will be certainly worth listening to, and rather worth considering, and worth more than that contemplating, and if possible changing our attitude, because the business is just not to go through experience, it is to grow through experience. And even that I do not, I even would like to replace the word growth with the word evolution or metamorphosis, where you go in as something and come out as something entirely different, more of a right fit. Do you all remember when you wrote your profile, right? When you applied for your company, when you wrote your profile, when you were interviewed, weren't you again and again trying to convince the interviewer, convince the panel that you are a right fit and not a misfit? Fine. You did prove that. After getting a job, how often have you thought of what amount of energy it were warranted to prove that you are the right fit and never a misfit? No. Once you occupy a place, once you get a post, what happens? We allow a bit of us to become a misfit, and we just project whatever we could retain as right fit. Just it is a kind of introspection. Go through you, because you are not expected to go out. They don't allow you to go out, but you can always go into your mind and just check what I was when I stepped out of my college, what I was when I got the job. How did I impress upon my panel that I am the kind of person they are searching for, and what happened to me after I got the job, right? Do I spend all the 24 hours in again and again renewing myself, being reborn, tinkering myself, polishing myself, and sharpening all those great skills which got me this job? No. We do allow consciously and unconsciously. We allow a bit of us to rest, and resting is rusting, please. Now, coming back to reading a book. Now, this book, you would have come upon this book, right? If you have not, I would rather, I don't recommend the book. If I can call myself a doctor of medicine, a doctor of human psyche, I would rather prescribe the book, because prescription is heavily recommended suggestion. Prescription is just not something else. It's not an advice, it's not a suggestion, it's not a comment. Prescription is something where you are very sure, you have logic, and you convince a person that this is the right kind of path you have to take. Now, during 1998, the last part of 20th century, before 21st century was born, right? There was again a kind of stagnation, and people, all the multinational companies, MNCs, started right sizing themselves, though people called it downsizing. The company said we are right sizing. They just got rid of lots of staff. It was almost like pruning, fine. And during that time, September 9th or September 8th, if I remember right, September 8th, a book got published in 1998 by a motivational speaker, right, a kind of a management guru called Dr. Spencer Johnson. I do not know whether you have made a guess. It's a brilliant book of 92 pages, extremely small. I wouldn't even call it a book, I would rather call it a booklet, fine, a smaller version of a book, and it's called Who Moved My Cheese. Now I think though you are not visible to me, I can still feel a couple of eyes, they catch up with a glint and they say, yes, I have heard of it, I have read it, fine. You might have read it, you might have heard of it, it would do you good, tremendous good, if only you get back to the book, Who Moved My Cheese. It talks about two mice, Sniff and Scurry, and two mice like little men called Hem and Haw. Fine. Sniff, as the name suggests, is capable of sniffing around the place to find where cheese is. 100% expected of a little mouse. Fine. Scurry, as you know, the word suggests, used to scurry around, run around the place, whether there is need or not. So it is a habit for Scurry to scurry around the place, and it was a habit for Sniff to sniff around the place. And you have Hem and you have Haw, two mice like little men with complex brain. That's exactly where the problem comes, with complex brain, which helps them to not to find solution but to create bigger problems. Now all the four are put in a cheese station, in a maze. There is a maze, and in the maze you have at some point there is a cheese station C. Cheese is a metaphor. We all have our cheese. Some of us have the plural also. Your loved one can be your cheese. Your family is your cheese. Your health is your cheese. Your career can be your cheese. Your distant dream which you are still expecting to get realized is a cheese, right? Your spiritual growth can be cheese. Anything which is near and dear, which you hold on to that so much that you are rather not holding on to it, you are held by it. Fine? It holds on to you. You're so passionate that you do not know that you're holding on to it. You think you're holding on to it, but actually that has grown on you and you do not know how to come out of it. That is a cheese, right? The question is, who moved my cheese? That is the title of the little booklet. And these four are put in a maze and they have to find out where the cheese is for their survival. For the two little, the mice, it's absolutely easy because a Sniff can sniff around and Scurry can run around, and their only business is to find cheese for their survival. It's their food. But for men it is metaphor. For human beings it's metaphor. What is dear and near to you is your cheese. Now what happens? Hem and Haw, they also come upon, they spend lot of time in finding out where the cheese station C is. The mice have been quicker than men because they just think straight. We decide not to think straight. So our thinking is almost like a maze, and they found themselves almost always in problems, and at last they come upon the station, cheese station C. And they are so happy to see cheese, mountains of cheese, and immediately Hem says, oh God, there is so much of cheese which would last for a lifetime. Maybe indirectly this is what you said when you got your job. Comfortable, right? You become not only comfortable, you become complacent. Now, the only thing these two have to do is, like the mice, every day morning they have to pull on, they have to wear their walking shoes or running shoes, take a little tool so that they can scrape away cheese, sit there, eat to their heart fill and come back to their little cabin. Now this is exactly what Hem and Haw have been doing. And after some time, Hem and Haw got so used to the atmosphere like us, so used to the comfort zone, that they totally forgot that their instinct should be kept alive, their instinct should be always sharp. They have to have what we call situational awareness. What is going on around me? Just think it over. How many of us have completely forgotten as to know what is going on around us? We run for a job, we come back, we attend to our children, we attend to our parents and in-laws, and we think this is exactly what is your situation. You are conscious of it I'm not talking about consciousness. I'm talking about awareness. Consciousness, you are conscious of it and you don't do anything about the change. Awareness is you are aware of it and you become proactive and productive. Now what happens after some time? The cheese starts reducing. But our dear little mice like men, hem and haw, they did not notice anything. They did not turn around every day. They don't even have the habit of waking up early and going out to the cheese station. They just very slowly, they meander everywhere and go to the cheese station because they know pretty well there is enough and more of cheese there. They have completely lost their two running shoes, the tools with which they could scrap and take cheese. So the tools are gone, the technique is lost, the sensitivity is lost. They have become 100% comfortable and complacent to what they have got. No more dreams, nothing. But these two little mice, every day scurry and sniff. They run around the place. They look out if there are better cheese anyway, any other cheese station anyway. They keep themselves alert and alive and their instinct very sharp, because animal instinct keeps on telling that times can change suddenly or gradually. Just look around you. These changes did not happen suddenly. They were around the corner, but you felt the impact suddenly. Impact is not the incident. Incident started way back. Very slowly it started reaching your doorstep, and until and unless it knocked upon your door, none of us felt conscious or aware that there is a knock at the door and you're bound to open it, and that was the lockdown. Now what happens? After some time, days pass on, these two men are very, very comfortable, complacent. Even their sense organs do not do what is expected of them. They don't see to see, they don't hear to hear, they don't taste to taste, they don't smell to smell. Fine. Nothing. Even the sense organs which are expected to be very alert, even they have gone almost dormant, inert. Right. Now all of a sudden, hem and haw, on a fine morning, they reach station C of cheese and find that it is very empty, absolutely empty, not even a speck of cheese there. They are very shell shocked. They do not know, they are spellbound, they are shocked, very rudely shocked. They turn around, and as I told you in the beginning, hem and haw both start denying that this is what they see. They say that no, the cheese has to be somewhere. It should be hidden somewhere behind the wall. It should be somewhere. Somebody is playing a trick upon us. Maybe our eyes are playing a trick on us. It should be somewhere. It cannot be hidden. It could not have just vanished in thin air. It should be there. It takes some time for them to realize the cheese is not there. And just by standing there and denying it is not going to solve the problem. It's going to aggravate the problem. Now they move on to the second phase. You find him becoming furious. He is so angry. He starts exploding. He says, it's unfair. It's unfair. We were brought here, put in the maze, and we were made to search for our cheese, and all of a sudden somebody has taken it away. Life is unfair. As you and I did scream, or some of us are continuously screaming now, whether you are a woman or a man, you say that I was not ready for it. It is unfair. You should have given me some more time. You should have given me some more training. I should have sharpened my skills which have already been thrown away. The second stage. And as these two people keep screaming at the top of their voice, it was Haw who wakes up to reality instantly. He just looks around and says, what happened to the mice? Where did they go? I have not seen them for past maybe a week or so. They have disappeared. Maybe they knew that the cheese will disappear at some point of time. It would vanish. Maybe we were not alert. We were not looking around. We were not aware of it. The mice were aware. Oh God. And you know something, the mice always used to have the running shoes round the neck, because if the situation warrants, easiest place is having the running shoe round your neck. At any time you can just take it and you can run. But these men have completely lost. They do not even know where they threw away their shoes. Like again, us. Now, Haw again says, why don't we go out? Why don't we move out? It's not cheese we would like to hold on. Our desire is holding on to us. They go back to their cabin every day. They starve. They go back empty stomach. They come back more furious, because empty stomach and anger are a deadly kind of combination, and it wouldn't let them think straight. It wouldn't allow them to think at all. Now what happens? Haw wakes up early and he says, No, I think I would rather go out and see. Him is against it. He rather brings down the wall just to search whether the cheese is hidden somewhere. He says, no, it will come back. It will come back. As we all keep on screaming, no, the normal days will come back. What was in March 22nd is again round the corner. Maybe a couple of months later, we will go back again. Everything will become normal because we are used to it. And whatever you got used to is something which becomes a habit. And when it becomes a habit, you think that you need not even think about performing something like brushing your teeth or combing your hair. You need not spend time over it. It becomes just another activity that goes unnoticed. Haw wakes up, and whenever he wakes up, you know what he does? Even while enjoying the cheese, he will write on the wall, what exactly he feels. Now, he tells him, if we are not going to move out of this place, if we still stand here and wail and lament and start bargaining that things will change, it is not going to change if you don't change. A beautiful statement again by Dr. Spencer Johnson. If you don't change, you will become extinct. That's exactly, no, it is for us. If we do not grow through experience, we are going to become extinct. If you don't learn out of experience, or if you don't unlearn from your experience what you have wrongly learnt, then you are going to become extinct. He writes it on the wall and he starts, then again he thinks over. It's going to be very, very strange because I have lost the habit of walking. I have lost the habit of running around the place. I have lost even the habit of searching for things. I do not even know how to search. I have forgotten. But standing at one place and getting scared is worse than running into darkness and finding out if there is a glimpse of light somewhere. So he rather chooses to run out, and once he starts running out, he writes it on the wall. He writes it on the wall stating that if you just imagine that you are not scared, what will you do? If you're not scared, you will be more productive, you will be more proactive, and you will be more practical, and you will not imagine worse negative things, right? So thinking of that, right, he writes on the wall and he starts running. He has already worn his shoes, and as he keeps running in darkness, he falls down in a couple of pits. He gets up and understands it takes the same energy to fall down and rise up. That's a beautiful way of learning from life. He continues to run, and as he runs, a very strange thing strikes his mind. Now he really wonders, as I was glued to my friend in that little station C, where there was even a speck of cheese, I was more scared. But while running towards I do not know what, there is no light, I do not know the way, but yet running towards something which I think I will find out gives him more happiness than standing there and wailing over it. And as he keeps running, he starts visualizing what he is running after. Maybe I would recommend the men and women of your organization to do that. It's just not thinking, it's visualizing something is what adds substance to your thought. Visualize it. Visualize a scene. Fine, it's not going to be the same again. Already the central government has requested all the corporate bodies to extend this kind of working schedule, connect from home till December. Fine, by then you would have got used to this life and then start complaining about moving out of the house, right? One thing is we have decided not to complain. Now we think and we start moving, and when we start moving, we understand that standing in a place stuck and getting worried about something, getting scared of something is very bad, and it's better to run even if you do not have a target, even if you do not have a goal. It's okay to run because you keep moving. Your skills are alert now. So he says, I'm extremely happy. Second thing, as I told you, first is to think. Second one is, as Haw does, he visualizes new cheese station, and as he visualizes, he could already start smelling it. It smells delicious, it tastes delicious. He has not come upon the cheese, but he feels it already. His taste buds are activated. He is so happy that he will come upon the new cheese station. So second thing is to visualize something beautiful. I know running the family is very difficult. Having your work hours just get crashing into your domestic hours, attending on to children, attending on to work. It is no longer 8 hours work, it becomes 18 hours work, plainly because we are going through a learning process, and whether it is you or your client, everyone is panic stricken. And what happens when you are panic stricken? You are not able to think straight. You have to breathe very deeply. We start breathing our doubts and fears, as a result of which you don't have oxygen supply to your brain. And that's what Ho does. He visualizes a new scene, after which it's not just empty, mechanical, automatic visualization. The third ingredient you have to add to the situation is passion. He passionately visualizes that he will come upon a new cheese station. He has already started tasting it, he has already started enjoying it, his sense organs are alive and alert. He feels tremendous amount of freedom. That's exactly what we have to do. You may find it difficult, I understand, but even then, we are all educated, we have got our experience, we have got our colleagues, the shoulders to lean on, we have got the people to whom we have to report, we have got our elders at home. All we have to do is educate ourselves. We are still illiterates when it comes to a new experience. Make use of education. Why at all should I get educated if there is no problem in life? Why should my mother give me education if I am not going to come upon problems which are bigger, heavier and more teasing than the problems which she faced? Why should I give my child education which is updated, which is relevant, which is futuristic? Why do I give my child this kind of an education if I am not sure that my child will face a problem which will be not the one which I faced? This is exactly how life is, and this is why we are given futuristic, socially relevant education. Now Ho is very happy because he knows how to think, and thinking helps him to step out of fear, and when he steps out of fear, he enjoys a unique kind of inexplicable freedom, and that makes him visualize the place where he has to go, though he has not got it in his mind. He just imagines, and it's a great imagination, positive imagination fueled by his passion. Now as he starts running, he comes upon a cheese station with E. It is E and it is empty. Maybe few pieces of cheese here and there scattered. He stands there and laments for a second. You know why? Had I started earlier, had I started realizing, had I started traveling from denial, moving on to anger, then to bargain, then to depression, and then to the practical mindset of what next? I would have reached station E earlier. I would have come upon cheese. But what do I find here? It is empty, but yet there are a few pieces. Now he gathers it. He does not treat it the way he treated the cheese in station C. He collects it in his pocket, runs back to his friend Hem, tells him that he came upon this cheese and requests him, convinces him, cajoles him, persuades him, asks him to come along with him so that we can move. Again, Hem says, no, I am sorry. I still feel that cheese is hidden somewhere. Everything will become normal. Everything will become normal and somebody will come and give us cheese. So there is no point in hanging on with your friend, however close he is to you. If the person refuses to be practical, refuses to take your advice and suggestion, fine. Ho again goes back on his way. Now he has made signs everywhere, arrow marks everywhere. This is something he learnt from his experience. Right? He writes it on the wall so that he can come back and go again to the place without searching for it. He can now go straight. Now he goes and comes upon a place, a new station of cheese, Yen. And whom does he see there? He sees already Sniff and Scurry happily sitting and eating the new cheese. He has offered the new cheese he found when he just took a few pieces from station E and gave it to his friend. His friend wouldn't taste it. Hem wouldn't taste it. He said, no, I don't think I will like the new cheese. I want my old cheese. Please compare it as I keep talking with you. Compare it to your mindset. How many of us want something which we are very sure is not going to come back? How many of us are reluctant, unwilling, adamant, stubborn, not even to give a try to the new kind of method into which we have been pushed in. Instead of being pushed in, if we lovingly jump into it, at least our instincts will be kept intact. When you are pushed in, only your anger is alive. Now he comes to station N and he is happy, and now you know what happens. There is a tremendous change that has come upon Aha. He just notes down whatever he sees and he looks at the cheese, he tastes it, it is new, it's a new kind of taste. It may take some time for him to appreciate it and long for it, but nonetheless, at least now he is clever enough to give a try and look at the positive points of the new cheese, though the memory of the old one is still lingering in the mind. Now he starts appreciating and takes note, and every time after having eaten the new cheese, he goes out for a walk to see whether any other new cheese station is around the place nearby. But every time he goes, he writes it on the wall, and he sits along with the 2 mice, and he feels as if he could hear the footsteps round the maze. He wishes, I think my friend Hem has started moving. I really wish he could see the writing on the wall. It's a very, very beautiful book, right? And my question is, how many of you see the writing on the wall? There is a writing on the wall. I understand it's extremely difficult for women. It is difficult for women, but I also appreciate the work done by men. So long you have been parent, and now you have become an apparent parent. You are visible to your children. You have been asking for the Saturdays and Sundays, and you really long for the weekend. And I would rather spell it as W-E-A-K and not W-E-E-K, because it is a fitting finale for an ill-spent week. It is rather a weekend, but we wanted our family. We knew pretty well, though the Monday mornings were blue, though the Saturday evenings were beautiful, Friday evenings were beautiful, Sunday evenings were a bit blue, Monday mornings were absolutely blue, right? In spite, we had a place to go. We had a place to go, and we had a place where the productive hours were spent with people of our own wavelength. You never knew who your colleague would be unless you were absorbed in this firm, and your colleague means so much to you. The kind of mental peace your colleague could give, or the kind of mental unrest your colleague could give, it could be given only by your colleagues, not by anybody else. And evening you come back because you had an entirely different experience. When you come back, your children are there, they are noisy, they are playful, they are pranky, but yet it's so nice plainly because you had an entirely different experience. But we were just folding our arms and praying to God, God, I need to spend more time with my family. So God decided, fine. If you need to spend more time with your family, you have all the 24 hours with you, you are glued to your family. All of a sudden, instead of being homesick, some of us are becoming sick of home also. I am telling the truth. We are homesick, we were homesick. Now this happens when you, it would have happened when you were a young one staying in a hostel. When the vacation started, you said, oh God, I am feeling homesick, I have to go back home. After 10 days staying with your mom and dad and just enjoying the food and the luxury which a home alone can offer you, you really wanted to get back to your house, that is your college. You wanted your hostel mates again. This is human nature, and this is a symptom of maturity. If you can hold on to your sense of balance, it's not the place. If I can quote Milton, who used to say, it is your mind that makes hell of a heaven or heaven of a hell. Hell is not different, it's your mind that creates. Heaven is not different, it's your mind that creates. If you can keep your cool inside, if you do not give away the key of your happiness to somebody else, the remote of your happiness to somebody else, whether you are at home connecting from home, or you travel all the way cursing the traffic jam, cursing every other person on an early morning trip with no reason, just because they were also on the road for the same kind of purpose, right? It's not going to change. This is exactly what I told Vidya. We all have grown so comfortable with the habit of complaining. We have one long catalogue of complaints. Instead, maybe, I do not know, it doesn't come with age. Please try to understand, it doesn't come with age. As you grow older, you don't become more matured. Maturity is always there, and it depends upon whether you have to grow through experience or go through experience and understand what you were before the session started and what you are now as the session is going on, what you would choose to be. Again, I'm using the word, I select the word very, very cautiously. What you choose to be, it is after all in your hand. The remote is in your hand. If you choose to complain, thank you, thanks a lot. You're most welcome to complain. Complain in capital letters. But if you choose to live and enjoy and understand this is an experience, and after maybe in 2030, you would have grown older by 10 years. Your children, if they are 14 now, they would have become 24. You would start complaining about something else, right? They would not have gone for job, or they would not have got the right kind of job according to your dictionary, your meaning. You will have something else, because complaining is a habit, and if there are no complaints visible, we will even complain that there are no complaints available. It is our attitude. If this is right, as I told you, if you are going to be Haw, who sees it on the wall, who writes whenever he goes on the wall, for me to see, writing on the wall, if I don't change, I become extinct. It's not just you who is going to change, who should change. It's not an individual, it's en masse. This is a kind of a collective movement of the people who have fallen into a comfort zone and they do not know how to come out. When someone asked me, ma'am, life is going to change. Once we come out, life is going to be entirely different. I just told, life does not change at all. Whether it was 1900 or 1800 or 2020 or 2030, life is not going to change, because by life you mean your capacity to express. That's what Haw meant. Expression according to the change. Don't be following the cheese. It's not who moved my cheese, who moves with my cheese. If you are capable of smelling the cheese as often as you can to see whether it has become stale, fine. Whether it has become rancid, it's going to taste rancid. Once you keep on smelling it, you know, fine, it's time to let go. When you keep your eyes and ears and all your sense organs open, you know it's time. So when a child told me, ma'am, life is going to change, I said, life is expression, it doesn't change. Lifestyle which change, because lifestyle is impressing upon another person. You try to impress upon other person with your lifestyle. It may be your vehicle, it may be your dress, it may be whatever comes to you as a matter of luxury. Life is a matter of necessity. So each one of you, you have a wonderful chance, only one chance, just one life, not to lament over, not to be humiliated, not to bow down, but to rise up again like a seed. Even if you bury it, it decides to come up, but it comes up after having rooted first, so that it can hold on to the soil for a longer period of time. If that is going to be your attitude, if you understand the difference between life and lifestyle, you will know that umpteen number of chances are waiting for you. Collectively, gather your children and tell them 2020 is definitely different from others. And what you wear as a mother, what you wear as a father, what you wear as a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law or a daughter or a son or a sister or a brother or whatever it is, that has undergone tremendous change. It's not life, the lifestyle. Attitudinally, it has completely changed. If that is accepted, then please prepare your children, not for anything. Prepare your children to stay prepared always. No? So we are now in a new era. It's not going to be the same. Even if it comes back, it's not going to be what we gave upon or what we left behind. With new challenges, our education, we are going to dust away everything that has gathered. The dust has gathered on our degrees and our education and our attitude. We are going to dust it and come up once again ready for the present and ready for the future. Thank you ever so much. Thanks a lot.